As I started my night shift, the security guard gave me a strange list of rules for the building. The laminated card he handed me was still warm from his pocket, and I remember thinking that was odd. Why would he keep rules in his pocket instead of the desk drawer? Marcus Delacroix stood in the lobby of the Berkshire Corporate Center at 11:47 p.m., his weathered face illuminated by the security monitors behind him. He'd been the night shift supervisor for 18 years, according to the employee board in the break room, and he looked every day of it. Deep lines carved through his forehead, and his hands shook slightly as he passed me the card. "Read it now," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Memorize it, then give it back to me before I leave. Don't write anything down, don't photograph it, don't tell anyone about it." I stared at the card under the fluorescent lights. It wasn't professionally printed like every other company document I'd seen during my 2 days of training. This looked homemade, printed on someone's inkjet, the text slightly smudged like it had been handled too many times. The title read, "Night Shift Protocol, Confidential," in bold letters. What followed were 8 rules that made my stomach drop. Rule 1, never go to the 8th floor between midnight and 4 a.m. If you hear sounds from the 8th floor during these hours, ignore them. Rule 2, if Mr. Pritchard's office light is on after hours, do not investigate. Log it as executive overtime and move on. Rule 3, if you encounter cleaning staff after 2 a.m., do not engage in conversation. They should not be here. Report their presence only after your shift ends. Rule 4, the parking garage camera on B2 has a blind spot near the northwest corner. This is intentional. Do not attempt to reposition the camera. Rule 5, if you receive a delivery after midnight, accept it without checking IDs or signing for it. Store it in the mailroom and do not log it in the system. Rule 6, never enter Mr. Pritchard's private elevator, even if someone asks you to retrieve something from it. Rule 7, if you hear crying from the women's restroom on the 3rd floor, do not investigate. Wait 15 minutes, then do a standard floor check. Rule 8, at 4 a.m. exactly, check your monitors. If you see anything unusual, delete the footage from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. and mark the system as technical malfunction. I read the list 3 times, my pulse quickening with each pass. This wasn't security protocol. This was a cover-up. "What the hell is this?" I asked, looking up at Marcus. His eyes darted to the elevator banks, then back to me. "It's how you keep this job. It's how you stay safe. It's how you don't end up like Terrence." Terrence, the guard I was replacing. During my interview, HR Director Julia Whitmore had said he'd relocated for family reasons. Clean, simple, none of my business. But the way Marcus said his name, with that tremor in his voice, told a different story. "What happened to Terrence?" I pressed. Marcus grabbed the card from my hands, his grip sudden and desperate. He asked too many questions. He didn't follow the rules. Now he's gone, and if you're smart, you'll do exactly what I just told you. He shoved the card into his pocket, grabbed his thermos from the desk, and headed for the exit without another word. The glass doors closed behind him with a pneumatic hiss, and I was alone in the vast marble lobby of Berkshire Corporate Center, surrounded by 16 security monitors, 2 computers, and an 8-hour shift that suddenly felt like a death sentence. I'd been working private security for 3 years when I applied for this position, bouncing between retail stores, apartment complexes, and the occasional event gig. Nothing glamorous, nothing dangerous, mostly sitting in a folding chair watching people go about their lives. I was 26, still living in my mom's basement, trying to save enough to get my own place while paying off the credit card debt I'd racked up during a spectacularly failed attempt at community college. The Berkshire job had seemed like a gift from the universe. $72,000 a year, full benefits, overnight shift differential, working alone in a mostly empty building. The corporate tower housed a pharmaceutical company, some tech startups, and several law firms. Professional, boring, safe. Julia Whitmore had interviewed me herself, which should have been my first red flag. HR directors don't usually interview night shift security guards. She was in her early 50s, blonde hair pulled back in a severe bun, wearing a gray suit that probably cost more than my car. She'd asked the standard questions about my background, my experience, my ability to work independently. Then, she'd asked something strange. "How do you handle ambiguity?" I'd fumbled through an answer about staying calm under pressure and following protocols even when I didn't understand the reasoning. She'd smiled at that, a cold expression that didn't reach her eyes. "Good. We value discretion here. The night shift requires someone who understands that not everything needs to be questioned or understood, just followed." At the time, I'd thought she was talking about corporate bureaucracy. Now, sitting at the security desk with Marcus's rules burned into my memory, I understood she'd been telling me something else entirely. The building was quiet in that way only large empty spaces can be. Every small sound amplified and distorted, the hum of the HVAC system, the occasional ping of elevator cables settling, the soft buzz of fluorescent lights. I tried to focus on my orientation materials, the official protocols that made sense, log everyone entering and exiting, do hourly floor checks, monitor the cameras, respond to alarms, standard stuff. But my eyes kept drifting to the monitor showing the 8th floor, empty hallways, closed office doors, nothing unusual. It was 12:17 a.m. According to Marcus's rules, I shouldn't go up there for another 3.5 hours. But why? What happened on the 8th floor between midnight and 4 a.m.? I pulled up the employee directory on the computer. The 8th floor housed Apex Pharmaceuticals, the building's largest tenant. They occupied the entire floor, labs, offices, conference rooms. According to the directory, they employed 63 people, including their CEO, Richard Pritchard. The same Pritchard whose office light I was supposed to ignore. The same Pritchard who had a private elevator I wasn't allowed to enter. I checked the cameras. Pritchard's office was on the south side of the 8th floor, a corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows. The interior camera showed his office was empty, lights off. But when I switched to the exterior view, I noticed something. There was a light on somewhere on that floor, visible through one of the windows, but not from any of the interior hallway cameras. I told myself it was probably just a conference room. Someone forgot to turn off. People forgot lights all the time. It didn't mean anything. But then I remembered Rule 2. If Mr. Pritchard's office light is on after hours, do not investigate. Log it as executive overtime and move on. Why would they need a rule about that? Why would noticing a light require a cover story? My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Follow the rules. I stared at the screen, my hands suddenly cold. I hadn't given anyone this number. It was my personal cell, not a work phone. How did they have it? Who was watching me? I looked up at the cameras, suddenly aware that just as I could see the entire building, someone else could be watching me right now. I typed back, "Who is this?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No response. At 12:34 a.m., I heard the elevator chime. One of the main elevators, not Pritchard's private one. I watched the indicator panel above the doors. It was coming down from the 8th floor. My mouth went dry. Rule 1, never go to the 8th floor between midnight and 4 a.m. The elevator doors opened. A woman stepped out, mid-30s, wearing a white lab coat over jeans and a t-shirt. She had dark circles under her eyes and carried a leather messenger bag that looked heavy. She walked straight to the security desk, her sneakers squeaking against the polished marble. "I need you to let me out," she said, her voice steady but her hands shaking. "The doors are unlocked," I said, gesturing to the main entrance. She glanced at the glass doors, then back at me. "No, I mean really let me out. I need you to see me leave. I need you to remember that I left at..." She checked her watch. 12:36 a.m. "Can you do that?" Something in her eyes made my chest tighten. Fear. Pure, animal fear. "Who are you?" I asked, my hand instinctively moving toward the panic button under the desk. "Dr. Lisa Vaughn. I work for Apex Pharmaceuticals. And I need you to remember that I left tonight. Because if something happens to me, someone needs to know I tried to get out." She reached into her messenger bag and pulled out a flash drive, setting it on the desk between us. "This has everything. If I disappear, if I have an accident, if anything happens to me in the next 48 hours, give this to the police. Not building security, not Pritchard, the actual police. Detective Anthony Graves at the 12th Precinct. Can you remember that?" My mind was racing. This wasn't in any orientation manual. This wasn't in Marcus's rules. This was someone asking me to be a witness to something I didn't understand. "What's on it?" I asked. She hesitated, glancing back at the elevators. "Proof. Proof that Apex isn't manufacturing pharmaceuticals on the 8th floor. Proof that people are being hurt. Proof that Richard Pritchard is running an operation that needs to be stopped." She pushed the flash drive closer to me. "Please, I don't have much time. They'll notice I accessed the servers. They'll know I copied files. I need to get this somewhere safe before they stop me." Before I could respond, the elevator chimed again. Dr. Vaughn's face went white. "Take it," she whispered urgently. "Hide it. Remember my name. Lisa Vaughn." She turned and walked quickly toward the main entrance. The glass doors slid open, and she disappeared into the night without looking back. I grabbed the flash drive and shoved it in my pocket, just as the elevator doors opened. Richard Pritchard stepped out, flanked by 2 men in suits I'd never seen before. Pritchard was in his late 50s, tall and distinguished, with silver hair and the kind of practiced smile that politicians use. The men with him were younger, muscular, with the coiled alertness of military or law enforcement. Private security, I realized, the expensive kind. "Good evening," Pritchard said pleasantly, approaching the desk. "I'm Richard Pritchard. I don't believe we've met. You must be the new night guard." I stood up, trying to look casual even though my heart was hammering. "Yes, sir. Started today. I'm David." He extended his hand and I shook it. His grip was firm, his palm cold. "Excellent. I wanted to introduce myself and make sure you're settling in. Marcus briefed you on the protocols?" The way he emphasized protocols made my skin crawl. He wasn't asking about the official security procedures. He was asking about the rules, Marcus's rules, the cover-up. "Yes, sir." He went over everything. Pritchard smiled wider. "Good. We have some sensitive projects here at Apex. Confidential work that requires discretion. I trust you understand the importance of following procedures exactly as they're outlined." One of the men with him shifted slightly, his jacket opening enough for me to see the gun holstered at his side. Not subtle, not meant to be. "I understand," I said. Pritchard nodded approvingly. Wonderful. I think we'll get along just fine. He gestured to the men. This is Mr. Foster and Mr. Blake. They handle special security for Apex. If you ever have questions or concerns during your shift, contact them first. Not the police, not building management. Them. Is that clear? Crystal clear, I said, my mouth dry. Pritchard patted the desk twice, a dismissive gesture that signaled the conversation was over. Welcome to Berkshire, David. I think you'll find we take care of those who take care of us. He walked back to his private elevator, a separate bank near the east wall, requiring a key card and biometric scan. The doors opened silently, and all three men stepped inside. Just before the doors closed, Pritchard looked directly at me and said, "Did Dr. Vaughn leave anything with you?" My blood turned to ice. How did he know she'd been here? Had he been watching the cameras from upstairs? A woman in a lab coat came through a few minutes ago, I said carefully. She left through the main entrance. Didn't say anything to me. Pritchard studied my face for a long moment, his smile fixed in place. Of course. Have a good shift, David. The elevator doors closed. I watched the indicator climb to the 8th floor and stop. I sank back into my chair, my legs shaking. The flash drive in my pocket felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. What the hell had I just gotten into? What was on that drive? And what would Pritchard do to Dr. Vaughn if he caught her? I pulled out my personal phone and opened a new browser, searching for Lisa Vaughn Apex Pharmaceuticals. Nothing came up. No LinkedIn profile, no news articles, no social media. Either she was incredibly private, or Apex scrubbed their employees from public databases. I tried Richard Pritchard Apex Pharmaceuticals. A few results. Corporate press releases about pharmaceutical breakthroughs. A profile in a business magazine from 4 years ago. Some charity event photos. Nothing suspicious. Nothing that explained what was happening on the 8th floor. At 1:15 a.m., I heard sounds from above. Not on the 8th floor. The sound was coming from higher up. Footsteps, dragging, something heavy being moved. I checked the monitors. The floors above 8 were mostly empty tenant spaces, scheduled for renovation. The cameras showed nothing but dark hallways and construction equipment, but I could definitely hear something. Rule 1 echoed in my mind. If you hear sounds from the 8th floor during these hours, ignore them. But this wasn't the 8th floor. This was above it. Did that mean I should investigate, or was the rule broader than specified? I grabbed my flashlight and radio, debating. My official duties included responding to unusual sounds, but Marcus's rules said to ignore things. Which protocol took precedence? Before I could decide, the sounds stopped. Complete silence again. I returned to the desk, my nerves fraying. The rest of the hour passed slowly. I did my 2 a.m. floor check, walking through the lobby, the ground floor offices, the parking garage. Everything was empty and quiet. When I reached the B2 level of the garage, I instinctively looked for the northwest corner Marcus had mentioned, the blind spot. I found it easily, a section where the camera's angle didn't quite reach, creating a shadow about 15 feet wide. Why would that be intentional? What needed to be hidden in a parking garage? I knelt down, pretending to tie my shoe, and scanned the area. At first, nothing looked unusual, just concrete and painted parking lines. Then I noticed the drain in the corner. It was clean. Too clean. Everything else in the garage was dusty, covered in the grime of car exhaust and city dirt. But this drain looked freshly scrubbed. Dark stains around the edges suggested something had been cleaned recently. Something that had spread. My stomach turned. I stood up quickly and returned to the lobby, trying to unsee what I'd just seen. But my imagination was already running wild. Blood. That drain had been scrubbed because blood had been there. Someone had bled in that blind spot, and it had been cleaned. Up. Terrence, the guard before me, the one who asked too many questions. Had he found the blind spot too? Is that why he was gone? Back at the security desk, I pulled the flash drive from my pocket and stared at it. Dr. Vaughn had said it contained proof that people were being hurt. I needed to see what was on this drive. I needed to understand what I'd walked into. But the computers at the security desk were networked. If I plugged the drive in, would it trigger an alert? Would Pritchard know immediately? I checked the time. 2:34 a.m. I had my personal laptop in my backpack. If I used that, there'd be no network connection. No way for anyone to trace it. I retrieved my laptop from my locker in the break room and returned to the desk. My hands shook as I opened it and inserted the flash drive. A folder appeared. Apex Evidence LV. Inside were dozens of files. Spreadsheets, photos, video files, PDF documents. I started with a document titled summary.docx. It opened to reveal a typed letter. To whom it may concern, my name is Dr. Lisa Vaughn. I am a biochemist employed by Apex Pharmaceuticals since 2019. What follows is documentation of illegal human experimentation, medical fraud, and criminal conspiracy occurring at the Berkshire Corporate Center, 8th floor. Apex Pharmaceuticals is not developing therapeutic drugs as publicly claimed. They are conducting unauthorized clinical trials on vulnerable populations, homeless individuals, undocumented immigrants, and others who can disappear without investigation. These trials involve experimental compounds with severe side effects, including neurological damage, organ failure, and death. Subjects are brought to the 8th floor late at night through the parking garage blind spot, avoiding security cameras. They are held in modified laboratory spaces and subjected to drug trials without informed consent. Those who survive are paid minimal amounts and threatened into silence. Those who don't survive are disposed of in ways I have not been able to document. Richard Pritchard directs these operations personally. He has compromised building security, local police contacts, and medical examiners to ensure no investigations occur. The night shift security guards are given rules to ensure they never witness or report the illegal activities. I can no longer remain silent. I can no longer be complicit. This evidence represents 3 years of documentation. I am prepared to testify if given protection. Please help. Dr. Lisa Vaughn. I read the letter twice, my chest tight. This wasn't corporate espionage or financial fraud. This was organized murder. I clicked on one of the video files. It showed a lab space I didn't recognize from the security cameras, probably one of the modified spaces Dr. Vaughn mentioned. A man in his early 20s lay on a gurney, strapped down, while someone in a white coat injected him with something. The timestamp showed it was from 3 months ago. For the first few seconds, nothing happened. Then the man began seizing violently, his body convulsing against the restraints. The person administering the injection stepped back and watched, making notes on a clipboard. No attempt to help, no emergency response. Just clinical observation while a human being suffered. The video ended after 2 minutes. The man was still seizing when it cut off. I closed the laptop, bile rising in my throat. Dr. Vaughn wasn't exaggerating. This was real. Apex was torturing people, and I was sitting in a building where it happened. Right above me. Right now. I checked the 8th floor cameras again. Still nothing visible in the hallways. But somewhere on that floor, behind doors the cameras didn't cover, were rooms where human beings were being experimented on. I needed to call the police. Right now. Detective Anthony Graves, 12th Precinct. That's what Dr. Vaughn had said. I pulled out my personal phone and searched for the precinct number. Before I could dial, the phone buzzed with a new text from the unknown number. You looked at the drive. Delete everything. Forget what you saw, or you're next. My hands started shaking violently. They were watching. They knew I'd opened the files. How? Was there spyware on the drive? Had they hacked my laptop camera? I looked up at the security cameras pointed at the desk and realized the answer was simpler. They were watching the security footage. Pritchard or his men were monitoring me right now, seeing me with my laptop open, seeing my reaction. Another text. Foster and Blake are coming down. Give them the drive. Don't make this difficult. The elevator chimed. The main elevator, descending from the 8th floor. I had maybe 30 seconds. I ejected the flash drive and looked around frantically for a hiding place. Not my pocket. They'd search me. Not the desk drawers. Too obvious. The potted plant next to the desk. I shoved the drive deep into the soil, my fingers working quickly, then brushed the dirt off. My hands just as the elevator doors opened. Foster and Blake stepped out, moving with purpose toward the desk. Evening, David, Foster said, his voice professionally pleasant. We need to have a quick conversation. Blake moved to cut off my path to the exit, his hand resting casually on his belt near his gun. Not drawn, but ready. Sure, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. What's up? Foster leaned against the desk, too close, invading my space deliberately. Mr. Pritchard is concerned. He thinks Dr. Vaughn may have left something with you. A flash drive, perhaps. He'd like it back. It contains proprietary information, corporate secrets. She didn't leave anything with me, I said. I already told Mr. Pritchard that. Foster smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. See, the thing is, we have cameras everywhere. We saw you talking to her. We saw you put something in your pocket. And just now, we saw you looking at something on your laptop that upset you very much. So let's not play games. Where's the drive? Blake had moved closer, boxing me in against the desk. I could smell his cologne, something expensive and cloying. I don't have it, I said. Check my pockets if you want. Foster's smile vanished. We will, but first, let's talk about your career prospects. You're new here. You probably need this job. You probably don't want trouble. Mr. Pritchard is prepared to offer you a significant bonus, let's say $20,000, to return the drive and forget this evening happened. You'd have the money by Monday, no questions asked. $20,000. That would clear my credit card debt and cover a year's rent. It was more money than I'd ever had at once. But I'd also just watched a video of someone being tortured to death. I don't have the drive, I repeated. Dr. Vaughn didn't give me anything. Foster's expression hardened. He nodded to Blake, who grabbed my arm and spun me around, slamming me against the desk. My face pressed against the polished wood as Blake patted me down roughly, checking every pocket, running his hands over my clothes, even checking my shoes. He's clean, Blake said. Foster grabbed my laptop and opened it. My heart stopped. If they checked the recent files, they'd see I'd opened the drive, but Foster just looked at the screen, saw nothing incriminating open, and closed it. Where's your backpack? Your locker? Break room. Locker 7. Keys on my belt. Blake retrieved my backpack and went through it methodically, dumping out my lunch, my water bottle, my spare change of clothes. Nothing. Foster was getting frustrated. Last chance, David. Tell us where it is, and you walk away with $20,000 and your health intact. Keep playing dumb, and things get very unpleasant for you. I'm telling you the truth, I said, meeting his eyes. I don't have it. Maybe Dr. Vaughn took it with her. Maybe she never had it. I don't know. Foster stared at me for a long moment, calculating. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. It's Foster. He claims he doesn't have it. Yeah, we searched him. I believe him, but... Understood. He hung up and looked at me with something like pity. Mr. Pritchard wants to have a conversation with you. Upstairs. Let's go. I can't leave the desk, I said, grasping for any excuse. I'm supposed to monitor the building. Blake laughed, a harsh sound. The building will survive 10 minutes without you. Move. They escorted me to Pritchard's private elevator. Foster used a key card and pressed his thumb to a biometric scanner. The doors opened to a wood-paneled interior, nothing like the standard elevators. We rode up in silence, and I tried to control my breathing, tried to think. The elevator opened directly into a reception area I'd never seen on the cameras. Expensive furniture, original artwork, floor-to-ceiling windows showing the city lights. This wasn't the main 8th floor. This was Pritchard's private suite, accessed only by this elevator. Pritchard stood by the windows, hands clasped behind his back, looking out at the city. He didn't turn when we entered. David, he said calmly, do you know what I built here? Do you understand the magnitude of what Apex Pharmaceuticals accomplishes? I didn't answer. He turned to face me, his expression almost fatherly. We save lives. We develop compounds that will cure diseases, extend lifespans, alleviate suffering. But progress requires sacrifice. It requires difficult choices. The FDA approval process takes 12 to 15 years. Thousands of people die while we wait for bureaucrats to review paperwork. We've found a way to accelerate that process, to test our compounds on willing participants who are compensated fairly for their contribution to medical science. Willing, I said, the word escaping before I could stop it. The video I saw showed someone being restrained and injected. That's not willing. Pritchard's expression didn't change. You've been misinformed. Dr. Vaughn is a disgruntled employee with a history of mental health issues. She's fabricated allegations because she was passed over for promotion. The evidence she's created is fiction. If you had the flash drive, you'd understand that it contains falsified documents designed to damage this company's reputation. That's why we need to recover it. Not to hide anything, but to prevent the spread of malicious lies. He was smooth, convincing. If I hadn't seen the video myself, I might have believed him. Where's Dr. Vaughn now? I asked. Is she safe? Pritchard's smile was cold. Dr. Vaughn is no longer your concern. What is your concern is making a choice. You can be part of our team, someone we trust, someone we reward generously. Or you can be a problem. Problems don't last long here. Foster shifted behind me, a subtle reminder of the threat. I want to go back to my post, I said. I want to finish my shift and go home. I don't want trouble. Pritchard studied me. Wise. But understand this. If that flash drive surfaces anywhere, with the police, with journalists, with anyone, we'll know it came from you, and there will be consequences. Not just for you, but for everyone you care about. Your mother, for instance. Barbara Hughes lives at 2847 Maple Street, apartment 3B, works as a nurse at County General. It would be unfortunate if something happened to her. The threat was explicit, calculated. They'd already researched me, found my weak points. You can't, I started. I can, Pritchard interrupted. I have, multiple times. Now go back to your desk, finish your shift, and forget this evening happened. If you do that, we'll forget it too. If you don't... He didn't need to finish. The message was clear. Foster and Blake escorted me back to the elevator. As the doors closed, I caught a glimpse of Pritchard returning to the windows, unbothered, already dismissing me from his thoughts. Back at the security desk, I was alone again. Blake and Foster had returned upstairs. My laptop was back in my bag. Everything looked normal, but nothing was normal. I checked the time, 3:47 a.m. In 13 minutes, according to Marcus's rules, I was supposed to delete any unusual footage if I saw anything on the monitors. I looked at the screens. The 8th floor cameras showed empty hallways, just as before. But I knew now that the cameras only showed what they wanted me to see. The real activity happened in spaces that weren't monitored. The flash drive was still buried in the potted plant, inches from where I sat. Evidence of murder, of human experimentation, of organized crime. Evidence that could put Pritchard in prison for life. But evidence that would also get my mother hurt or killed if I used it. I thought about Marcus's rules, about Terrence, who'd asked too many questions. I thought about Dr. Vaughn, who was probably already dead or disappeared, punished for trying to expose the truth. I thought about the people being brought in, through the parking garage blind spot, the ones being experimented on right now, while I sat here doing nothing. What was the right choice? Keep my head down, protect my mother, let monsters continue operating because standing up to them was too dangerous? Or take the risk, trust the police, hope that the system would protect us both? My phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. Smart boy, forget everything. See you tomorrow night. Tomorrow night. Another shift. Another 8 hours of complicity. Another night of people being tortured while I followed the rules and pretended not to notice. I couldn't do it. I couldn't be part of this. At 4:02 a.m., I pulled the flash drive from the potted plant, brushed off the dirt, and put it in my pocket. Then I called 911. 911, what's your emergency? I need to report human trafficking and illegal medical experimentation at the Berkshire Corporate Center. I have evidence. I need Detective Anthony Graves from the 12th Precinct. There was a pause. Sir, can you describe your emergency? People are being held and experimented on in this building right now. I'm a security guard, and I have video evidence and documentation. Please send Detective Graves. Dr. Lisa Vaughn said to contact him specifically. This is urgent. Another pause, longer this time. Officers are being dispatched to your location. Stay on the line. No, I said. I can't stay on the line. They're monitoring the security system. They'll know I called. Please hurry. I hung up and immediately called my mother. She answered on the third ring, her voice thick with sleep. David? What's wrong? It's 4 a.m. Mom, listen carefully. I need you to leave your apartment right now. Don't pack anything. Just get in your car and drive to Aunt Linda's house. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Don't stop for anything. Can you do that? She was fully awake now, alarmed. What happened? Are you okay? I'm okay, but I got involved in something. Dangerous at work. There are people who might try to use you to get to me. I've called the police, but until they arrive, I need you somewhere safe. Please, Mom. Trust me. I'm getting my keys right now, she said. I heard movement, the jangle of keys, a door opening. I'm leaving. Call me when this is over. I will. I love you. I love you too. Be careful. She hung up. I looked at the monitors. The 8th floor was still quiet. No sign that anyone had noticed my phone calls. But they would. Soon. I estimated I had maybe 10 minutes before police arrived. 10 minutes before all hell broke loose. I used the time to copy the security footage from tonight onto a separate thumb drive I had in my backpack. Footage of Dr. Vaughn arriving and leaving. Footage of Pritchard and his men confronting me. Everything that might be useful evidence. At 4:14 a.m., I saw flashing lights outside. 3 police cars pulling up to the main entrance. The elevator chimed. The main elevator, descending from the 8th floor. Pritchard and 4 men, including Foster and Blake, emerged. Pritchard's face was calm, but I could see anger in his eyes. What did you do? He asked quietly. I called the police. I told them what's happening here. The main doors opened, and 6 officers entered, led by a black man in his 50s, wearing a detective's badge on his belt. I'm Detective Anthony Graves, he announced. Who called about human trafficking? I raised my hand. I did. My name is David Hughes. I'm the night security guard. I have evidence that Apex Pharmaceuticals on the 8th floor is conducting illegal human experiments. Pritchard stepped forward, his expression shifting to concerned confusion. Detective, I'm Richard Pritchard, CEO of Apex Pharmaceuticals. I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. This young man is a new employee who has apparently become confused about the nature of our work. We conduct legitimate pharmaceutical research, all fully licensed and regulated. I'd be happy to show you our credentials. Detective Graves looked between us. Mr. Hughes, what evidence do you have? I pulled out the flash drive. This contains video and documentation of illegal human experimentation. It was given to me by Dr. Lisa Vaughn, an Apex employee, earlier tonight. She said people were being hurt and that Mr. Pritchard was covering it up. She specifically asked me to give this to you. Pritchard laughed, a relaxed sound. Detective, Dr. Vaughn is a former employee who was terminated this afternoon for performance issues. She apparently decided to retaliate by creating false evidence and involving our security staff in her delusions. I'm prepared to provide documentation of her termination and her history of mental health concerns. Graves took the flash drive from me. I'll need to review this. In the meantime, I'd like to see the 8th floor. All of it. Pritchard's smile tightened slightly. Of course. Though I'll need to check with our legal team about accessing certain proprietary areas. We have trade secrets that... I have probable cause based on a specific complaint and physical evidence, Graves interrupted. We can do this cooperatively, or I can get a warrant and bring 20 officers back here. Your choice. The tension was thick. Pritchard's men were positioned near the elevator, blocking access. Foster's hand hovered near his weapon. For a moment, I thought they might actually try to stop the police. Then Pritchard nodded. Of course, Detective. We have nothing to hide. Please follow me. The group moved toward the main elevators. Graves gestured for me to come along. You too, Mr. Hughes. I want you to identify anything that matches what you saw on the drive. As we rode up to the 8th floor, Pritchard spoke calmly to Graves, explaining Apex's legitimate research, their FDA approvals, their contribution to medical science. He was setting up the narrative, making anything we found seem explainable and legal. The elevator doors opened to the 8th floor hallway. It looked exactly like it did on the cameras. Normal corporate offices, lab doors with safety placards, everything professional and sterile. Graves walked slowly down the hall, checking each room. Standard labs, workstations, equipment, nothing that looked like the room in Dr. Vaughn's video. I need to see everything, Graves said, including spaces not visible from the hallway. Pritchard gestured to a door marked Authorized Personnel Only, Biometric Access Required. This is our primary research lab, highly sensitive work. I'll need to have non-disclosure agreements signed before— Open it, Graves said flatly. Pritchard used his biometric scanner. The door opened to a state-of-the-art laboratory, expensive equipment, pristine workstations, filing cabinets labeled with chemical compounds, still nothing incriminating. But at the far end of the lab was another door, unmarked, also with biometric access. What's through there? Graves asked. Supply storage, Pritchard said. Controlled substances, kept secure per DEA regulations. Open it. For the first time, Pritchard hesitated. Just a fraction of a second, but I saw it. So did Graves. Is there a problem, Mr. Pritchard? No, of course not. He scanned his palm. The door clicked open. The smell hit us first. Chemical, organic, wrong. The room beyond was dark until Pritchard flipped a switch. Fluorescent lights flickered to life, revealing a space that looked nothing like a supply closet. 4 gurneys, 2 occupied, medical equipment, restraints, IV stands with bags of clear liquid, a desk with paperwork and syringes, and 2 people. One was unconscious, an older woman with gray hair, strapped to a gurney with her arm connected to an IV. The other was awake, a young man, maybe early 20s, who stared at us with terrified eyes and tried to speak through a gag. Jesus Christ, one of the officers whispered. Detective Graves moved quickly to the young man, removing the gag. What's your name? How did you get here? The man's voice was hoarse. Carlos Mendez. They grabbed me 3 days ago, off the street. Said they'd pay me for a medical study. Then they locked me in here and started injecting me with things. Please, get me out. Graves turned to Pritchard, his hand moving to his weapon. Richard Pritchard, you're under arrest for kidnapping, false imprisonment, and assault. You have the right to remain silent. Pritchard's face had gone pale, but he recovered quickly. Detective, this is a misunderstanding. These individuals are voluntary participants in an IRB-approved study. They signed consent forms. They're being compensated. Mr. Mendez is clearly confused from the medication, but he's gagged and restrained, Graves snapped. That's not voluntary participation. Officers, secure Mr. Pritchard and these other men. Search every room on this floor. I want everyone found and accounted for. What followed was chaos. More officers arrived. Paramedics took Carlos Mendez and the unconscious woman to ambulances. Forensic teams photographed everything. Pritchard's men were handcuffed, including Foster and Blake, who were both armed without proper permits. Pritchard himself maintained his calm demeanor even in handcuffs, insisting this was all a misunderstanding that his lawyers would resolve. But as officers searched the rest of the floor, they found more hidden rooms. A total of 6 people held in various states of consciousness, including 2 who appeared to have been there for weeks based on their condition. They found filing cabinets full of documentation, subject records, drug compounds, observation notes, everything organized and indexed as if Pritchard had never imagined getting caught. Detective Graves pulled me aside as the sun began to rise. You did the right thing calling this in. If you'd waited, if you'd ignored it, more people would have died. We've been hearing rumors about this building for years, but we could never get enough evidence for a warrant. You handed us everything we needed. Dr. Vaughn, I said. The woman who gave me the flash drive. Have you found her? His expression darkened. Not yet, but we have teams checking her home, her known associates. If Pritchard did something to her— He didn't finish, but I understood. If we were too late to save her, at least we'd stopped him from hurting anyone else. Over the next 72 hours, the story exploded. National news covered the Berkshire Horror, as the media dubbed it. Apex Pharmaceuticals was revealed to have been conducting unauthorized human trials for 4 years. At least 19 people had died in their experiments, their bodies disposed of through connections Pritchard had with a corrupt medical examiner. Dr. Vaughn's flash drive contained irrefutable evidence, videos of experiments, financial records showing payments to police officers and city officials, subject records with names and dates. The previous night shift guards, including Terrence, hadn't relocated. They'd been paid off or threatened into silence. Terrence was found living 3 states away under a fake name, terrified to come forward until he heard about the arrests. Marcus Delacroix, the guard who'd given me the rules, was arrested as an accessory. He'd known for years what was happening and had been paid $50,000 annually to keep quiet and train new guards to follow the protocols. Dr. Lisa Vaughn was found alive at a safe house run by a domestic violence organization. She'd gone into hiding after leaving the building, knowing Pritchard would come after her. When she heard about the arrests, she emerged and testified at every proceeding. Richard Pritchard was charged with 19 counts of murder, 6 counts of kidnapping, dozens of counts of assault, and conspiracy charges. His trial lasted 4 months. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence, including testimony from survivors, forensic, evidence from the 8th floor, and financial records showing the scope of the operation. I testified for 3 hours, describing the rules Marcus had given me, my encounter with Dr. Vaughn, the threats from Pritchard and his men, and what I'd found in that hidden room. The defense tried to paint me as an unreliable witness, a kid who'd only worked there one night and had misunderstood corporate security protocols. But the physical evidence backed up every word I'd said. Pritchard was convicted on all counts. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without possibility of parole, calling his crimes a betrayal of medical ethics and human decency on a scale rarely seen in American history. Foster, Blake, and 8 other Apex employees received sentences ranging from 15 to 30 years for their roles in the operation. The building itself became infamous. Berkshire Corporate Center was sold at auction. The 8th floor was gutted entirely. A victims' advocacy group bought the building and converted it into a community center offering free medical care and legal services to vulnerable populations, the same people Pritchard had targeted. I never worked security again, couldn't stomach it. The night I'd spent in that building changed something fundamental in me. I used the reward money from the Crime Stoppers program, $25,000 for information leading to Pritchard's arrest, to go back to school, majored in criminal justice this time. I wanted to understand how people like Pritchard operate, how systems fail to stop them, how to prevent it from happening again. Dr. Vaughn became a prominent advocate for research ethics reform. She testified before Congress about the inadequacies of oversight in private pharmaceutical research. She'd lost her career in one sense. No pharmaceutical company would hire her after she'd exposed Apex, but she'd found a new purpose in ensuring her experience could protect others. My mother never fully understood what happened that night. I told her a simplified version. I'd discovered illegal activity at work, reported it, and the people involved had made threats. She was proud of me, but also terrified of how close I'd come to being hurt. She made me promise to never take another overnight security job, a promise I was happy to keep. 3 years later, I attended a memorial service for the 19 victims identified through Pritchard's records. Their families gathered at the site of the former Berkshire Corporate Center, now renamed the Vaughn Community Center in honor of the whistleblower who'd made justice possible. As I listened to family members share stories of their lost loved ones, a father, a daughter, a brother, people with lives and futures stolen by Pritchard's greed, I thought about Marcus's rules, the strange list that had seemed so mysterious that first night. Those rules weren't supernatural or inexplicable. They were human evil, bureaucratized. Each rule had been carefully crafted to ensure that security guards remained blind to atrocities happening above them. Don't go to the 8th floor. Don't investigate Pritchard's office. Don't engage with cleaning staff. Don't check the blind spot. Don't log deliveries. Don't enter the private elevator. Don't respond to sounds. Delete the footage. Simple instructions that, when followed, allowed monsters to operate in plain sight. The system had been designed to exploit the natural human tendency to follow orders, to avoid trouble, to prioritize personal safety over moral action. Marcus had followed those rules for years. Terrence had followed them until he couldn't anymore, then fled, rather than fight. I'd been given the same choice: comply and survive, or resist and risk everything. The difference was Dr. Vaughn. Her courage in documenting the truth, her willingness to risk her life to stop it, had given me the evidence I needed to make resistance possible. Without her flash drive, I would have been just another security guard reporting vague suspicions that could be easily explained away. After the memorial service, Dr. Vaughn approached me. We'd stayed in touch over the years, bound by that one night that had changed both our lives. "I never properly thanked you," she said. "You didn't have to believe me. You didn't have to call the police. You could have deleted that drive and gone home, and no one would have blamed you. But you didn't. You took the real risk," I said. "You spent 3 years gathering evidence, knowing what Pritchard would do if he caught you. I just made a phone call." She shook her head. "That phone call saved lives. The 6 people they found alive that night, Carlos Mendez and 5 others, they're alive because you acted when you could have looked away. That matters." She was right. It did matter. Not because I was special or heroic, but because in that moment, I'd had a choice, and I'd made the right one. That's all any of us can do when confronted with evil. Make the choice to resist, even when resistance is dangerous, even when the system is designed to make compliance easy and resistance hard. I still think about that night sometimes, about how close I came to following Marcus's rules, to prioritizing my safety and my mother's safety over the lives of strangers being tortured in rooms I couldn't see. I don't judge Marcus for the choice he made. Fear is a powerful motivator, and Pritchard's threats were real, but I'm grateful I made a different choice. The world doesn't change because of grand gestures or superhuman courage. It changes because ordinary people in ordinary moments decide that some things are worth fighting for, even at personal cost. Richard Pritchard created his empire of suffering because dozens of people over the years chose not to see, not to question, not to risk themselves. He fell because 2 people, Dr. Vaughn and I, chose differently. One night, one decision. 19 families got answers. 6 people got their lives back. A monster went to prison. And I learned that the strange rules we're sometimes given aren't mysterious or inexplicable. They're just evil, systematized. And the only way to fight systematized evil is to refuse to follow the rules, even when especially when that refusal costs us everything. If you enjoyed this, you'll definitely want to see the next ones too. So subscribe now and let me know your take in the comments.